I already know that some people are gonna be mad about this video, but it is what it is. People are mad about everything nowadays. But the truth is simple. Neither side cares about young men. The left doesn't, the right doesn't. The difference is they just screw you over in different ways. The left goes after you culturally. They call you toxic for watching Joe Rogan or having a single conservative or traditional belief. They push this idea of women don't need no man, which in other words logically translates to you are useless. They push these crazy diversity agendas in the education system and the workplace that are specifically designed to benefit every single group other than young men. They see that you're lonely, maybe struggling with dating, and they gaslight you into thinking that it's completely your fault. And if you just so happen to disagree with any part of their ideology, they call you all the words. They call you a misogynist, a racist, a fascist, a N-word, if you know what I mean. Oh, and by the way, if what happened to Charlie Kirk happened to you, many of these people would literally celebrate and spit on your grave. Many of them literally don't even want you alive. This is the problem we're facing from the so-called left. Now, the right doesn't shame you in the exact same way, so you have to look a little bit deeper. Look at what Republican or conservative politicians actually do. They cut all the taxes in the world for billionaires, corporations, and they bail out Wall Street whenever they need something. All at the same time when you can barely afford rent and probably won't even be able to buy a house ever in your lifetime. These people also, of course, gaslight you into believing that all of your financial struggles are completely your fault. Just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. We've all heard that before. If you just so happen to be struggling in this economy, it's because you're lazy and you're entitled and you just don't want to work. Or you just didn't work hard enough, bro. And at the same time of all this, they loot your tax money, give billions of it to our closest ally, and literally want you to go fight in a war for them. Which, by the way, I think could be coming very soon if you've been paying attention to the news on Iran and Israel. Anyways, if all this made you feel uncomfortable, maybe that's the point. This video isn't about playing team politics, it's about calling out the bullshit on both sides. That's what I always do on this channel. And so what I want to do in the next, 15 minutes or so, is show exactly how both sides of the political spectrum have failed this demographic of young men like myself. First, how the cultural left has turned young men into a punching bag, then how the financial elites on the right sold us out economically. But I also do want to talk about, at the end, what this means for us going forward and what to do about it, because it can't just go on like this, right? When it comes to the political left, the Democrats, the liberals, whatever you want to call it, is it me or does it seem like these people care about every single demographic group except for straight young men born of this country? They pander to women, LGBTQ, older voters, and even illegal immigrants, but they essentially tell young men to just screw off. And that's not to say that those other groups don't deserve respect. What's clear though is that the left side of the aisle prioritizes these groups at the expense of young men. And then they wonder why young male demographics went to Trump. And to no one's surprise, their answer to it is, oh yeah, they're just bigoted, misogynistic, sexist, homophobic, racist, fascist, all the words you can think of. Like they're literally discrediting themselves by using those words. But let's look deeper into the issue from a few different perspectives. Obviously, relationships are down across the board, but young men are suffering the most. I think the basic statistic is something like 2/3 of young men are single. The share of young men who have had no sex within the past year is growing rapidly, and just millions of guys are living lonely lives. But instead of actually addressing that crisis in any tangible way, the culture just makes a joke out of it. You get called an incel. Just be confident, bro. Just take a shower, bro. You get told that you're entitled, that you need to step up your game, that you're not good enough. And the overarching narrative presented by the left is that, oh, women have had it worse historically, so your loneliness in the present just doesn't count. And overall, just the highly feminist culture within the past few decades or so have made it so that women have these ridiculously high standards. You go, girl, never settle, you're a queen, you're a boss babe. You need a guy who's at least a whole foot taller than you. He has to be fit and athletic, he has to be a liberal Democrat, he has to buy her nice things, he has to like animals. Just all of those requirements. It seems like nowadays dating for men is just trying to meet a checklist where it's impossible to check off all of the boxes. But it's a double standard because on the other hand, if you as a guy say that, okay, I have my preferences too, You say something as simple as, I prefer a younger girl who doesn't have a high body count. Or worse yet, I prefer a housewife. Then suddenly, again, all the names come flying at you. You're a misogynist, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're somehow racist and fascist too. So that's the problem with a lot of guys who are struggling with relationships and just lonely and single. But it goes even deeper than that. Because even for the guys who do get into a relationship, it doesn't mean life suddenly gets easier then. The system still isn't built for you. For example, you all know about the divorce laws, how they overwhelmingly favor women, and how in the US, I think about 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Most of the time, it's not the men who are walking away, it's the men who are getting left behind. You see all these horror stories on YouTube about people saying that they got divorced and just their whole life collapsed right in front of their eyes. And when that happens, the courts are obviously quick to hand over full custody to the mother. They force the father to pay ridiculous amounts of child support and alimony, and the man basically becomes a paycheck, a walking, living paycheck, not a parent. And it doesn't stop there either, because there's the whole thing of false accusations too. It's not too common, obviously, but anything that can be even remotely labeled as making a woman feel uncomfortable, that's grounds for getting in trouble, getting sued, getting your whole life taken away from you. We've seen it before. You can lose your job, your reputation, your prospects for the future, sometimes even your freedom, without any legitimate chance to defend yourself. And if you try to fight it in any way, you'll be labeled as guilty for pushing back. So think about it in the bigger picture. On one side, you've got millions of guys who can't even get into relationships and are blamed for it as if it's somehow their fault all the time. On the other side, you have some men who are lucky enough to be able to get into a relationship, just to watch it collapse under the laws and the cultural attitudes imposed on them. So in both cases, as a young guy in this world when it comes to dating and relationships, it feels like you're walking on eggshells. You end up either alone and constantly blamed if you can't find a partner, or oftentimes discarded and punished for it if you do. And just the overall culture doesn't make it easier either. In commercials, music, TV shows, whatever, all of this essentially just gets put under the blanket label of toxic masculinity. And that's something that I think young men need to push back on, and I think that's something that we're starting to do nowadays. And obviously, maybe there are people on an individual level who display these traits of toxic masculinity, but to throw such a broad generalization of it around, it just doesn't make sense. And I feel like this is obvious to say, but there's a problem with labeling masculinity in general as toxic. Because sure, I agree that masculinity isn't just one thing. It doesn't have to mean being the stereotypical alpha male or whatever. But let's be honest, a lot of young men do like going to the gym. We do like being physically strong. We do like sports. We want to be mentally stoic. We want to have some kind of fighting spirit within us. Historically, we've fought in wars throughout the centuries. So it's only logical that we as young men don't want to be lectured by someone who looks and lives nothing like us. Like the stereotype of some green-haired body positivity activist with a nose ring who tells us we're somehow toxic for just existing. And it's not even about disdain towards them. It's nothing against them. They can do whatever they want. It's just that we don't want to listen to them talk about what it means to be a man or their feminized version of a man. The real issue is, where are the people who look like us that we can look up to? Who talk like us, who like the same things that we do, who represent even a fraction of what we value? Where are the people who actually understand what it's like to be a young man today? Two examples of figures that somewhat check these boxes: Joe Rogan, but if you like him, oh, you're a racist, misogynist, sexist, homophobic. Another one is Charlie Kirk. And they literally silenced him for good. And so young men are not happy about this. So in all, the message that we get from the cultural left, it's clear. We're shamed in the dating world, we're mocked in the culture, and we're called all kinds of names for just existing and having certain natural tendencies, interests, beliefs. And we can handle life for ourselves. We don't need the world to revolve around us. But is it too much to ask for at least someone to understand? So I spent all this time shitting on the left, but the political right is not without blame whatsoever either. And the more subtle part is that they don't shame you in the same exact way as the left does. They're not out here saying masculinity is toxic. In many cases, they do pretend to care about you. When it comes to like all the vibes at least, you gotta admit that all the cool male figures are coming from the right. But if you look at the actual policies that they implement while in government, do they actually make your life easier? The median home in the US now costs over $420,000, and wages aren't even close to keeping up. Worker productivity has gone up drastically, but wages haven't. So where's all that money going? It's not going into your paycheck, it's going towards the government, towards funding bailouts for Wall Street and corporate executives. And who wants more corporate tax cuts? The Republicans. Who wants to block any sort of housing reforms? Republicans. Who opposes raising the minimum wage? Republicans. Who is generally against the unions and pro-labor laws? Republicans. They also don't care about working class young men. And if you point out these sort of issues, they'll call you lazy. Just stop buying Starbucks. You gotta invest in the stonks, bro. Oh, and healthcare is another one. If you're, let's say, 25, you're a working class young guy, especially if you're working without benefits from your employer, one trip to the ER, it can bankrupt you. It can leave you in so much debt. But Republicans have fought against healthcare reform. They tried to destroy Obamacare. They relentlessly fight against anything even resembling universal healthcare. And the reason is because they are corrupt. They take millions of dollars from pharmaceutical companies and the health insurance companies. And when they get into office, obviously they support legislation that works in the favor of the people who got them in power in the first place. They do the bidding of those corporations. So that's why these, like I said, pharma companies and insurance companies post record profits year after year, and their CEOs make millions of dollars, all while running your pockets dry if any medical emergency ever happened to you. And I think I might have briefly mentioned this earlier, but if you screw up, you get nothing. If the big banks and Wall Street screw up, they get a bailout every single time without fail. During the 2008 crisis, during the pandemic, and every time any big corporation wants a tax break, you just butter up the government and they get it in return. During 2020, during the COVID situation, there was trillions of dollars handed out in so-called relief. But somehow it was the small businesses and the regular workers who collapsed, while giant corporations literally got richer than ever. Fortune 500 companies in the stock market, they just kept on going up and up, all while your rent, gas, and groceries, they also kept increasing, but that's not a good thing. These people are getting tax breaks for private jets, all while you can't afford a $13 Big Mac. And you're told, obviously, work harder, boot yourself up by the pull straps. But how are you supposed to bootstrap harder when rent is $2,000 a month for a 200 square foot studio? A shitty house costs $500,000, wages haven't moved in decades. And your tax money is bailing out these same big banks and corporations that crashed this economy in the first place. And speaking of tax money, where else is the money going? You pay tens of thousands every single year, but still it seems like the schools are underfunded, the roads aren't fixed, the cities aren't safe, we don't have high-speed rail or any real effective form of public transportation, you don't have your healthcare covered, you might be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for student loans. And all while this is happening, our greatest ally steps in again to save the day because Congress is sending them billions of dollars, billions of your hard-earned tax dollars. And obviously because they're our greatest ally, and if you don't support them, then you're anti-semen or whatever. It's your fault for being antiseptic. But yeah, you're supposed to go along with it while they send your money off to an overseas country that's currently bombing 8 different other countries. Oh well, you might be sitting here broke, lonely, and struggling to find meaning in this world. And speaking of that certain country and those foreign wars, who do you think gets sent overseas if those wars happen to escalate and we get involved? It's not going to be the senator's kid, not the hedge fund manager's kid, not Zuckerberg's kid. For the most part, it's not women or LGBTQ or illegal immigrants either. It's working class young men of this country, American citizens, the backbone of the nation. And obviously you'll be told to serve your country, which truly is a proud thing to do. But you come back to the same unaffordable housing, same unaffordable healthcare, same unaffordable groceries, the same old dead-end job. And I think that's the reason why you see a lot of these post-war veterans who come back to the country and they're mentally just not right. And there are millions of people who served our country and they ended up homeless, broke, mentally ill, and it's a sad reality. Because while the political right doesn't call you toxic and doesn't promote radical feminism or whatever you want to call it, they don't care about young men either. They actively fight against social programs for the working class, send your tax dollars overseas, and if all things go wrong, they send you overseas as well. Long story short, neither side cares about you. It's really that simple. And maybe it's by design because the people at the top want you divided. So if you watching this is sitting here and about to type out an angry emotional comment because your political side got criticized in this video, congrats, you got played. But this goes beyond politics. I know that some people are beyond the pale, they're just such hardcore tribalists that they could never be convinced in any way and they literally hate the other side and want them dead. But anyone who's watched my videos knows that that's not me personally. As for myself, just to briefly mention it, I'm an independent, but I have different opinions on different issues. Overall, probably social conservative, but economically a little bit more left-wing. But I don't care if you who's watching this right now is a full-on socialist, a hardcore Trump supporter, or even a crazy conspiracy theorist. If you're struggling in this world with a lot of the same stuff that I talk about in these videos, then you're welcome here. We're on the same team. There might be other disagreements that we can put on the back burner, but at the forefront are the common issues that we face. Loneliness, debt, housing, healthcare, just paying the bills and trying to build a meaningful life in this world for ourselves. And at the end of the day, the only way to really win is either by escaping the system for yourself or fighting back in a tangible way to try to change it. Because in many ways, this world is designed to keep you stuck. They want you working just enough to barely survive and pay your taxes, all while they steal your tax money for corporate bailouts and foreign wars, while giving you really not much back in return. Anyways, I don't know all the answers, I don't know exactly how to fix this, I'm just out here diagnosing the problems. But I do know that the solution obviously involves coming to a common understanding of some of the big issues that we face. That's why I talk about them on this channel. It's not just to be a doomer or whatever, it's because the best way to strategize and win is by first understanding the harsh truths of the reality that we live in. And thankfully, I feel like that's starting to come to fruition. Our generation, namely of young men, but also inclusive of women and people of all colors and all ages, we all know that something's off. I feel like we're all starting to understand the world on a slightly deeper level. And the move and where we go from here is a decades-long struggle where we all use that knowledge and understanding to improve ourselves and thereby improve the world that we live in, because we're the ones who are going to inherit the world eventually. So if you're someone like me who's watching this, a disaffected young man who feels abandoned by the entire system of the government, of corporations, of all the people who essentially rule over you, my message is very simple. If you're ambitious enough to really want to change things for the better in this world, it's about becoming as powerful as you can possibly be, becoming a person of consequence, a person who has a voice in this world. Become strong, both physically and mentally. Become knowledgeable. Learn about useful, practical subjects like history and psychology. Build connections in a social circle that you can leverage. And then eventually, when the time is right, when people like us are of age, when we're the ones in the halls of power and actually have the ability to make a difference, then maybe we can do that. So I hope the few of you who think beyond the two-party paradigm or the two sides tribalism made it to the end of the video. And for you guys, I want to say it's no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, if you can see through the overall system, if you can accept the flaws of both sides, then you already know that you're not alone in this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to leave a comment. I try to respond to as many as I can. And as you guys know, I don't take sponsorships on this channel, I'm not funded by anyone, I don't try to sell you some online course or any of those BS things that most other influencers try to do. So the only thing that really keeps this channel going is your support, namely on Patreon and channel memberships. And for everyone who's already on there, I really appreciate it. If this channel has ever made a difference in your life, ever made you think differently or inspired you in some way or just understand the world on a deeper level, if you'd like to support the channel, those are obviously the two ways you can do it. On Patreon, you can message me one-on-one. We have a community chat where people are starting discussions about some really interesting topics. And I also make some behind-the-scenes posts and Patreon exclusive videos like this one right here. That was a big one. Or if you'd like to go directly through YouTube, there's memberships as well, channel memberships, where as a member, you'll always have access to the full archive of my videos. You can watch a lot of the previous videos that I made private, as well as some of the full-length live streams, where there are some people who ask me interesting questions, and some of them are kind of cringe, but it is what it is. You guys can see that if you'd like. Also get the badge by your name in the comments so that I'll almost definitely be able to see it and always respond. And you know I gotta plug the second channel as well. If you're interested in hiking, travel, outdoors, camping, any of that kind of more wholesome stuff than what I talk about on this channel, go check that out. Got some really cool videos coming up soon, including some national parks, so lots and lots of content coming up.